What is up, everyone? Welcome to the latest installment of Talking the Point, a conversational Overwatch series with today, we're excited to be joined by one of the spiciest memers in the Overwatch community, Florida Mayhem's brand new analyst, Albert Yeh. How you doing, man?
Doing alright, yourself?
I'm good. Thanks for taking the time to be here. I understand it's a pretty busy time right now, Stage 4 just a few days away, and that first week is a pretty tough one.
Yeah, and I don't really even know, we're not too sure what patch we're on either, so...
Really?
It's all right.
You don't actually know already? A few days out, you don't even know?
Well, we know for now it's 1.22, which is the old Hanzo patch. But as everyone knows, Blizzard's in discussions still. They haven't decided for sure whether or not we're going to stay with old Hanzo or we're going to go. We're going to use the live patch for Stage 4. So
Right.
that's still being decided.
So what is that like trying to organize practice around that then? Because obviously it's a little difficult now. You can't just say to players like, oh, go grind ladder on your off days, because the ladder is different to what you're actually competing in.
Well, so Tavik can't really play new Hanzo, even though he wants to, because for now we have to scrim on old patch. So that's what all the OWL teams have been doing that have been scrimming. I know some haven't really been, like they have media obligations and stuff like that. So it's different for each team. But for us, we've been scrimming on old patch, on the 22 patch, because there's no point in scrimming on a patch that's not confirmed yet, unfortunately, as much as we would like to.
How annoying is it right now not being able to play on the current patch? Is it like really, like the communication's like nothing between you and Blizzard right now? Do you have like a constant line like we're thinking about it?
Oh no, they're thinking about it. They're just taking a really long time to think about it,
Yeah,
which
I
is
don't know
really
why it's
frustrating.
taking... We heard
Like-
Agility's on stream. He was that was the only source of positive information that we've had about it. It's so
Oh yeah,
strange.
well there was a few. Like I think I commented on one on Reddit because I knew already.
Right.
Because I've been in contact with them. Obviously, every staff member wants to know, like, hey, is it on this patch? Like, we wanted to be
Yeah.
on this patch. Like, can you give us like a hint? Can you give us like a decision before the stage starts? Like, so, yeah, we're still waiting on final confirmation. But for now, everyone's scrimming on old patch because what can you do?
It's so strange leaving it this late. Like, do you reckon it could literally be like the day before and they're like, yep, by the way, new patch?
I think it should be tomorrow. Is like that'd be the last day that makes sense. Like Monday. Like I know they don't work weekends, so obviously all the OWL teams work weekends, or at least one of the weekends. I think most OWL teams only have one day off. I think at least we do. We only have one day off.
Right.
And then all the other days it's practice. But yeah, it should be soon. Next 2 days, an official response, and you'll. Depending on what it is, I'm sure you'll see a ton of pros, staff, like analyst desk. You know, you'll see it on Twitter. When they know, like the community will know. Like nobody is as excited, or I mean, not excited. Nobody is as stressed about like this decision as like the players and the management and the staff in OWL. Like they want it just as much as the community wants it to be on live patch.
I wonder what the holdup is. Do you know what the holdup actually is specifically? Like, why is it not just a simple, okay, community wants it, let's go for it?
So from what I understand, it's not that simple. Like, there's different teams internally at Blizzard.
Right.
So there's like league operations, but I don't know where the buck stops. Like, how high does this decision need to, like, how high up does this decision need to be made? And I think from what we're hearing, it seems like this is a very high up discussion. I don't know if Nate needs to have personal sign off on it. Like I have no idea how high up it needs to go, but it seems like it has to be pretty high up, because I think the first level of the people that we contact understand like our grievances, and it's like, yeah, like maybe we should do it, like, but like they're discussing it, and I don't know who makes the final say, if they need more convincing or whatnot. Like I don't really know. I'm too new to know the whole structure of the OWL from Blizzard staffing perspective, but I just know they're still talking about it.
It is interesting, because you would have to imagine there's not one person really like defending it, right? Because like I'm sure the casters want it, I'm sure the analysts want it, clearly players and coaches want it.
There's a few players that don't want it in. I'd say mainly the support players.
Okay.
Hanzo just deletes them. New Hanzo. Some players don't like new Hanzo at all, but I think in general it should always be on the live patch, broken or not. Like that's just how it is. Like the patch being broken is a separate issue in my mind. That's something that you have to solve like in testing, and the league should always be run on whatever current patch there is. And I don't think there should be patches mid-stage unless it's a hot fix. And if it's a hot fix, it should be hot fix in the league too. That's just my opinion. If it's
No, I agree with that.
sufficiently broken that you need to have a hot fix, it should be hot fix in the league as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I'm sure these are the type of conversations we'll have leading up to season 2. And hopefully they'll listen to us and make the league a better experience for everyone. Because I think it's really crucial to retain viewers and to keep growing viewers. And it's hard to grow viewers when they're watching a game that they don't understand and that they don't play. Like they're playing a different game. So it's hard to stay invested when you're just like, wow, I'm wondering who the best Hanzo in the world is, and you can't see that because new Hanzo doesn't exist in OWL right now. So I think it's a from a viewership perspective, it's not a good look.
No, I agree.
Yeah, I mean the players don't want it, the coaches don't want it. Yeah, I mean it's a no-brainer to me. But obviously Blizzard's corporate entity, and there's red tape and stuff that needs to be worked through before they come to a decision, unfortunately. But I think also having a longer break in between stages would help that. You could have these discussions, have lengthy discussions, fix patches, test stuff on PTR. Like you could be like, hey, pros, we need you to test, like you have a month, like we need, like, can you please test it, this week, or like give us your thoughts on the balances, like, by this week, and then they can like, work out numbers, change numbers on buffs, nerfs, and stuff like that based on pros. Like, because I do collect pro feedback. It's just right now it's kind of weird because it's like patches are not synced. Some pros don't want to play on live because there's no point for them. They're they just kind of work on like the old hero and then don't play that hero on ladder because that would make them worse. Like, for example, Tivix are a Hanzo player, right? So it wouldn't make sense for him to get used to the new Hanzo speed, the new movement, and the new like the planted ability or whatever the storm arrow ability. It wouldn't make sense for him to get used to that, because if we ever run Hanzo stage 4 right now, it'd be with old Hanzo. So it's counterproductive for him to ever practice Hanzo on ladder. So he has to play other heroes. So he can't work on that except in scrims. Well, there's a feedback channel, and I can see everyone else that like posts in it, and it's right now it's just like a bunch of people like, Blizzard, please, like we need this, like we want this, we want new Hanzo in, like please give us a decision. So that's kind of where they're at. So I do think a lot of teams haven't really started practicing yet. Like they took an extended break, and then they'll just, like, I know Boston is probably just gonna run dive. They're just gonna probably run old meta, for first week because that's what they're best at. They haven't had too much time to practice because they went to Boston.
Right.
So they're just starting practice, I think, again, back up tomorrow. So they don't have too much time to experiment with the new patch. So they're probably just gonna run old stuff and try to work around, like, just try to finesse the old comp and play it to its advantages against the like a new meta, and just try to see how it works, and then copy whoever has adapted, like week 1. Like as I said, like for last stage, week 1, everyone was like, oh shit, Sombra's broken, we must run Sombra. And it didn't work out for a lot of teams because they were forcing Sombra, and then by the end of this, like after that week, everyone else was like, okay, we don't need to force Sombra anymore. Like it's not as broken as we thought it was. We can just run our old stuff. Same thing happened stage 2 when Mercy got nerfed, right? Everyone's like, oh shit, Mercy's dead. We can only run Lucio like Moira now, or Lucio Zen. And then sure enough, like a few weeks later, everyone's back on, their old Mercy Zen comps, because Mercy isn't dead. Like Lucio, it's like Mercy got nerfed, but she still isn't dead. She's still very useful. So it still takes some pros time to adjust, or to understand, to break down the meta, to understand what's best, what's, if something's overtuned. And I think the general consensus right now is Tracer isn't as dead as we thought it was, because really Brigitte, like unless they're running a quad tank, then it's like, well, Tracer's kind of useless. But if they're running like Brigitte dive, like there's no reason not to run a Tracer, because you just mid range. The only skill she has that affects a Tracer is the shield bash, and she has to be so fucking close to a Tracer that it's like these are the top Tracers in the world. They just adjust to the distance, adjust the engagement range, and then you're fine. You can still play Tracer. Like it's not that big of a deal. It's just learning the hero mechanics. Like in the beginning, it's like new heroes, like fuck, it's broken. Like I can't be right next to a Brigitte. It's like, yeah, but you can still do the same thing from a further distance, and the Brigitte can't do anything about it. So I think it takes players some time to adjust, and we'll see adjustments in stage 4, regardless of whether new Hanzo or old Hanzo. If they say new Hanzo's in, I think it'll take maybe an extra week to adjust.
Right.
Because teams that have been prepping early or started prepping earlier will have prepped for the wrong meta.
Yep.
So they'll be at the same, like, that's the only thing that would suck about new Hanzas. Like, we've been practicing on old meta, and any other teams that have been practicing old meta, we won't have a leg up. Like, the fruits of our labor, like,
Yeah.
they're useless, because we have been practicing that. We'd be on the same page as people that haven't practiced. So that'd be the only downside. But that's whatever. I still think new Hanzo should be in for sure.
Right. So has a lot of your time been dedicated to kind of like reviewing the VODs of the scrims that you have been able to compete in under the old patch, that kind of thing?
I mean, it's all we can review. It's really, I think most people are figuring out their lineups, whether or not they want to continue to run dive, whether they want to run dive with Brigitte, whether they want to run tanks permanently with Brigitte. So I think every team is it's going to be a wild first week, for sure. Whether it's on old patch, whether it's on new patch, it's going to be wild either way. And I think after the first week, we'll kind of see what teams do, because like once other teams see each other, see what other teams play. That like kind of the whole league helps figure out the meta. In that way, like whichever team looks the strongest, people try to copy their compositions and their setups and what they want to pick.
Right. So to jump back in time a little bit, so the official announcement was only a few days ago, but obviously we saw you in an episode of Ascend a couple weeks back. What have the first few weeks been like for you? Do you feel like you've kind of meshed with the team already?
It's been a learning experience. Obviously the pace is a lot different. It's a lot more professional now. Everyone practices in the facility. We all live together. We eat together. So we're around each other a lot. So I've had a lot of time it's been a little bit over a month now, I believe. So yeah, it kind of flies by really quick. One thing they don't tell you, like when you arrive, it's like, wow, there's so much to do. But there's really not that much time to do it in. Most OWL teams kind of scrim 3 blocks a day. After 3 blocks are done, you're pretty much exhausted. And if you want to do anything else, it's like it kind of and also have some free time for yourself. It kind of stretches to the wee hours of the night. But yeah, it's been great. That's what I love doing, and I love doing this full time. Yeah, it's been great. No complaints.
That's good. So what of so in those first few weeks that you've been with the team, obviously we've had Mineral step down as main coach lately. What have your responsibilities been? How have you kind of adapted to the situation with the team lately?
So I guess I'm interim assistant coach, I guess is my position right now, until Mineral comes back. And then I'll be back to analyst again. But for now, like I'm helping. We don't have an interpreter yet for riders, so we're kind of I'm doing a lot of kind of the mid-round adjustments, or going over some things in English with the guys, and Ryder kind of handles the Koreans, and then sometimes he has a big picture or a macro call he wants to make with the whole team, and then he'll do that. But a lot of the kind of in between maps or after maps, quick like pointers or tips, or like, hey, you should do this, you should do that, or maybe we can try this next time. I've kind of had to step up in that regard. And funny story, if you remember, there's like a Twitter post where Ryder was in Vancouver for his visa. So for one match, actually, the last match of the last stage, I was the only coaching staff left in the dugout. So I was head coach for a day.
Wow, that's pretty crazy. A few weeks into your job and you're stepping up the head coach for a day. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. But I mean, we have it all figured out. Like, we have the support. Like, Mineral has had like the infrastructure down for a long time. Ryder, obviously, with the experience as coach. So we had the lineups we wanted to run. I was just there to, more or less provide moral support and offer a few tips with the dugout. But unfortunately, I believe we got blown out by Shock that day, if I remember correctly. So unfortunately, we lost. But I think it's the match before that really I thought was what I prepared for, our hardest against Glad, and that was a very close series, although it was a 3-0.
Right. Well, what is it like being in the dugout, having watched like from the sidelines for a while and having actually competed as a player? What is it like sitting in the dugout when things pop off or when things are going the wrong way? How does that kind of feel for you guys?
So when things pop off, it's awesome. You
Mm.
watch it. I think that's goes the same for everyone. You're like, wow, like so for us, a lot of times, it's Psy player. It's like, wow, he just killed everyone, and he's
Yeah.
just doing these insane things in the match. So it's always exciting. It's really nerve wracking when things go wrong, or you're like, why did we do that? That's not what we went over. Um, you know, it's a little different being the dugout because you personally can't do anything about it.
Mm.
Whereas as a player, at least you can be like, hey guys, like let's fix this. But we can't say anything to them during the match, obviously in the dugout. So we just have to watch, and it's all on the players at that point
Right.
to fix issues mid game.
Yeah. So to step back in time a little bit, so going back to what I just said before, so you started out as a player yourself, competing, and you competed in a bunch of various other esports titles or other FPS titles for a while. Not
Yeah.
quite at the level of Overwatch League, but definitely some
Oh,
competitive FPS games.
I wouldn't call them esports. I would.
Planet
They
Side
had
2 was
like
probably the
small
closest, right?
small competitive
Mm.
scenes. Probably Dirty Bomb. I don't know. A lot of Al players actually played Dirty Bomb.
Really?
Yeah, so Surefour was actually I scrimmed against Surefour, Cool Matt. They were all on the team. Hubris, and Dirty Bomb. So a little
Wow.
history. The game that came before. Tailspin was on that team as well. So a lot of storied players. Stoop was on that team. And he's the coach for Valiant now, or one of the
Mm.
coaches for Valiant. They have a ton of coaches. Um, so yeah, I'd say Dirty Bomb's probably the most competitive
Right.
game that I competed in. Yeah, wouldn't call any of them esports, but I
Sure.
played my fair share of games.
So it wasn't until I think it was late last year that you decided to make the swap from competing as a player yourself to going into more of like the coaching, the analytical role, where your first role was with Energy. Have you always kind of been the analytical member of your teams? Have you always been the one to step back and approach it with an analytical mindset?
Yeah, that was actually one of the issues for me as a player. Is a lot of players don't want to analyze things in the
Mm.
moment or don't want to talk about what happened during scrims or during a match. They want to like, hey, let's do it after. Um, but I was always the guy like, okay, what's going on right now? I want to fix it right now. I don't want to talk about it later. So that's one of the things as a player I had to adjust. Just write things down, hold things in, discuss it after. So yeah, I've always been the type of person that I want to fix things. I want things to. My goal as a player and now as as part of the coaching staff is to get as close to playing a perfect game as possible.
Mm.
As a player, it's impossible. As a coach, it's even more impossible because that means six players have to play perfect games for you to hit. But I think for me, it's like the constant pursuit of perfection, and that's always been like my mindset. Kind of another part, like I look up a lot to Wizard Young because he's the same way.
Mm.
Like even though New York wins, like he's not happy. Like if something went wrong, something went wrong. It doesn't matter if you won or lost. If you can make mistakes in wins, you can make mistakes in losses, and um, that's just the type of person I am. Just always been hyper competitive, and a perfectionist. So
Right. Well, do you feel that speaking of Sire player joining the team recently, you mentioned in an episode of Ascend that you were impressed by his work ethic and just his dedication to his craft. Have you seen, just in the first few weeks that you've been with the team, have you seen other players kind of trying to step up their level of practice to try and match what he's been bringing to the team?
um, it's tough to say, because I don't really. That's just like a small tidbit. I don't hang out with the players too much after scrims. Like that's their time. That's their time to de-stress.
Yeah.
That's their time to decompress, stream. Hang out with their buddies in Discord or whatnot. So I don't really know what they do post scrim, like post work hours or office hours, if you will. But Sai player I knew because he told me himself, like when we were going over spots, it's just kind of a tidbit of information he let on. So that's when I knew, like, wow, this guy's going over VODs. I'm not like I don't. I'm sure there's other players on the team that go over VODs, that look over VODs, that look over the scouting reports and everything. But he's the only person that I know for sure that does that. I don't really go around after screens. Hey, what are you doing?
Sure,
Are you
yeah.
doing your homework? Like, are you doing what we asked you to? Are you studying
Yeah.
this? Are you studying that? Like, I'm not that type of person. If they want to do it, and they want assistance or they want my input, I'm happy to provide. But I'm not going to force somebody to do that if that's not what they want to do.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's fair enough. Well, an issue I wanted to get your thoughts on is in regards to the current roster sizes in the Overwatch League, because so obviously the player limit is 12, but only I think 4 teams have actually hit that player cap. And Florida Mayhem obviously started out with 6 players, the original Misfits roster, and have added 3 players since throughout the first couple of stages. So where do you kind of fall in that discussion? Do you prefer having sort of a smaller team, or do you wish that you had 12 players so you could run internal scrims, that kind of thing? What's your stance on the matter?
So I don't think you need a full 12. I think 12 is pretty hard to handle because that just means you're basically going to have an A squad, a B squad, and your A squad's going to get all the play, like the match time.
Yeah.
And it's hard to rotate players in and out of the starting lineup. I think it makes more sense to have a smaller rotation of players, like 8 or 9. So I think Nixo does this very well. They don't have a full 12, but everyone gets playtime on that roster. And I think that's very important because you do lose. If you don't play in matches, you do lose a lot of your edge as a player, and you kind of, I don't want to say deteriorate, but you kind of your skill starts to decay or stagnate because you're not really improving. You're not practicing against, and you might be practicing, but if you're not in game situations, it's really stressful on a player. So I don't think 12 is optimal, and I think there's some changes coming next year, or there should be some changes that obviously I can't talk about in detail. But between contenders and Owl, hopefully, that that will, so you don't need to have a sister team to like lock down players, and it doesn't have to be academy team. You can kind of have a mix of the two. So hopefully it's that. But yeah, I don't think you need a full 12 for Owl. I don't think that's optimal.
Right. So you feel like Florida Mayhem's in a good spot right now with the current roster size?
With the roster size, yeah, I think this roster size is fine. I think the roster size, I think 8 or 9, I think is perfectly fine.
Right. Have you spoken to like Mineral? Because I remember, I think it was in an episode of Ascend, or maybe it was an interview online somewhere, when the first few matches were happening, when there was only 6 members on the team, there was talks about what if someone's injured, what if someone's sick, would he be able to step in as coach? Would he be able to be the substitute? Have you had discussions about that? About how it was in the original time?
I believe it would have had to be Mineral, and I think coaches can play in extreme circumstances, but in Mayhem's early days, like that wasn't an extreme circumstance. That was a pretty high possibility that would happen. I'm surprised it never happened where a player was just deathly ill and Mineral would have to sub in. So luckily that didn't happen. We never got to see Mineral on stage, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say on that topic.
Interesting situation. I don't think that's the likelihood of that's only going to decrease as the league goes on, I guess. But
I really don't think you'll see another 6-man roster. Like Mayhem, like the organization understands that we need, now, obviously understand now they brought in 3 more players to give players like Logix, for example, want to take a little break, and then some players throughout the season they get burned out. We're reaching that point. I mean, I think especially stage 3, where some teams, the playoffs aren't a realistic scenario for them. They can rest their starters, or they're in contention for, for example, Philly rested Carpe, and I think that's perfectly fine. I think that's something the Spurs do all the time in the NBA. They rest all their starters. Everyone gets really mad, because they're losing games. But it's like, what's the point? They're losing games that don't really matter in terms of the grand scheme of things. They're already in the playoffs. So I don't mind that. I think players should be able to have take rest if they need it. I want this week off, or I don't want to play. I'm a little burnt out. I think someone else would be better in my slot for this match. And I'll be rejuvenated next week. Need to take time off. I think that's super important. To give people rest, and you need to have a bit more than the 6-man roster to give people rest.
Well, speaking to the coaching staff specifically, then, because Florida Mayhem has relatively, as you just said, it's Mineral, Ryder, and yourself. Obviously, Mineral's out at the moment. Is there any systems in place if you guys ever feel a sense of burnout? Do you sense that pervading the league and the coaching staff specifically?
I think it's a little different for coaching staff. I mean, there is stress in terms of performance. Okay, are we winning matches? Performance of the team as a whole. But there's definitely way more stress on the players. because they're the ones that get a lot of the pushback, in the community. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you go to Reddit, or they're like the comments are mostly about the players, very rarely about the coaching staff, unless the lineups
Unless
don't
you're
make sense.
Dallas.
Right. I mean, certain exceptions there,
Yeah.
but unless the lineups don't make sense, or you're actually doing very poorly when people expected otherwise, then yeah, the coaching staff will be brought up and there's stress there. But I think the being a player is much more stressful. But as I said, Mineral hasn't had a chance to rest until now because he was the only coach, and I think it is important to be able to have that time to rest. And I think a part of that would be to have longer breaks in between stages. I think that would make the most sense. I think that serve like two purposes. One, like you can figure out what patch you're playing on. You could sync the patches a lot easier if you had a longer break in between stages, like testing wise. Like, hey, we can have a discussion about like the patch and like some changes we want to make. I think the league next year should definitely sync up live. Like what's played in Owl should always be what's played in by everyone else in Overwatch. Like that patch.
I agree. Yep.
Like I think it doesn't make sense for people to watch an old patch for 5 weeks, and then the next stage there's still a patch behind. I don't think that's intuitive to the viewer, and I don't think it makes ranked a terrible place to practice for the pros as well, because where are they practicing their individual skills mechanically, learning new heroes, or or brushing up on heroes that they might need to learn for the Overwatch League, that they might play in matches. That's in ranked. You can't just only practice in scrims, right? You have to practice on ladder. Whether you solo, whether you queue with teammates, it'd be much better to have the patches synced up.
Right. So moving forward, obviously we know expansion is probably going to be a thing. There are going to be a lot more teams. What do you think outside of having longer breaks? What would you do to improve the current structure of the Overwatch League? Do you think maybe less matches, just longer breaks overall? Would that be your main improvement?
So I've talked about this before with some other people, but I think there's no I would like to see the matches not stacked on top of each other for 4 days straight. And kind of spread out over the week.
Yeah.
Just like maybe 2 matches a day, or like so spread it out so there's no back-to-backs anymore. I think back-to-backs are very harmful. And because you can only prepare, like, okay, so say you go in a week, you're like, okay, our first match is against, New York. We prepare for New York first. Then after that, we prepare for the second team. But if it's back-to-back, you don't have any time to prepare for that second team. You just basically, okay, let's just run the same stuff we ran against New York. Hope it works against, the other team if it's in a back-to-back. So that's, I don't think that's ideal. And I think I don't mind 2 matches a week. I think 2 matches a week is fine as long as they're spaced out properly. And I think if you let all the matches get played throughout the week instead of only having it Wednesday through Sunday, it would be a much better. It would be much better in terms of scheduling.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I think we'll probably see that more and more as more teams get added to the league within Season 2 and beyond. I definitely think we'll see the stages at least spread out a lot longer.
And on top of that, if they want to travel, like if we're doing arenas and each team is like localized and we travel to like other arenas, like that would need to be even more, like there's no way you can play 3 consecutive matches on the same day. And then have a back-to-back and you're flying and you're traveling and it'd be a mess.
Yeah. Alright, so prior to joining the Overwatch League yourself, I was scouring through your Twitter a little bit and I noticed that you did your own power rankings, as did almost everyone else in the community, prior to the league actually even commencing. And so you were one of the only people to actually place Boston relatively high, so kudos on that. A lot of people shut them out immediately. But funnily enough, you placed Florida Mayhem at the very bottom. How has your perspective changed having joined the team and now seeing firsthand the dedication and the effort that goes into it?
I mean, I think performance doesn't necessarily correlate with effort or time spent. Every OWL team has more or less a very similar practice schedule, so everyone's putting in the hours, whether you're bottom of the league or at the top. Maybe less at the top, because I heard Nixel, kind of took a little step back in terms of scrim hours and they rest a little bit more, which is fine. Like that, they're perfectly entitled to do that. But everyone else is, even if you're at the bottom, you're still working hard. Like we can't make playoffs. Shanghai can't make end of season playoffs. Dallas can't make we're still practicing. Like it's not you don't throw the towel in. Like every player's still trying to get better. Teams are still trying to get better. So yeah, I mean my perspective hasn't changed. We're still obviously towards the bottom, fighting with Dallas for the 10th place spot. At the moment, that's where we're at. So they did better than they outperformed my power rankings.
Sure.
So yeah. But I did cheat on the Boston one because when I was a player, we scrimmed Boston a lot when they were doing trials.
Right.
I already knew Striker was going to be one of the most insane tracers in the league. I knew Neko was pretty nuts, and I knew they were going to be good. I saw the improvement as we scrimmed them. Like before, we took some maps off them. By the end of their trial phase, they were just blowing us out on every map, and I didn't understand why they kept wanting to scrim us. Maybe it's because they didn't want to show their strength until have people underestimate them, and then they like the underdog narrative and all that. But like I saw the progress, I saw the improvement, and then I knew there's no way in hell they're going to be bottom of the league. Like the way they played, like because we scrimmed a few other AL teams as well.
Right.
So I knew relative to other teams, like they were much better than certain AL teams, and I just knew Boston. But there's no way Boston was going to be at the bottom. Did I think that they would be number 2? No, but also I think everyone rated Dallas super high. Like everybody. Like there's nobody would have. I think Dallas is like. I think that's why Dallas fans are so distraught, right? I feel bad for them, and I don't think anyone saw this coming. But I do think Dallas's style finally caught up to them. They never played dive. They always just relied on the back. Like they just played their own game. Really, they're the only team that they didn't care about the meta. They would play their hit scans, and they would still win. And it seemed like they were invincible. Like it didn't matter if the meta shifted and everyone else was playing something else. They could always play their own game, their own style, and it would work out for them. But I think finally, when Al brought all the talents of the world together, they could not. It just didn't work out anymore. And unfortunately, that's just how it shook out for season 1.
Do you think that, or do you still keep, because obviously the contenders finals are happening right now, do you still keep a close eye on the contender scene to potentially scout talent from that part of the Overwatch community?
Yeah, I mean, I came from that scene, the kind of amateur, striving to be semi-pro to pro. Obviously, like that whole, the whole path to pro. Like that's where I came from. That's my roots. And I'm always interested in the next talent, because that's part of my job. Is scouting, and like that's what I bring to the table. I always keep tabs on upcoming talent. I have I have a list of players that I think are up and coming. And I kind of update it based on what I see. I built NRG, the contenders team, ran all the trials, and so that's like something I'm very interested in. Just scouting upcoming talent and just developing that space. And I think now that I'm an owl, like I don't think it's changed. I still want to bring players that have potential. Develop them and bring them into Owl, and try to make that transition, happen or as smoothly as possible, and give people chances that are otherwise overlooked. Because I think, as a player, when I was on the grind, I really disliked the whole, hey, we're friends, like the friends group thing, where they might not be the best players at their position, but they have connections. So like now that I do have the connections, I can also I can identify people that I think have merit, and that have earned it in my eyes based on merit, and try to bring them up, or put them in contact with people that can give them opportunities. So that's just my perspective. I'm always going to be involved in kind of the contenders. Not as involved in open where I was, but I still keep some tabs, at least NA wise, on open. So I actually play in open.
Really?
Yeah, I actually have not lost an open division match.
Wow.
A regular season open division match. I've lost in playoffs, but I've never lost regular season, so
That's
hoping to keep that
impressive.
streak alive. So yeah, I'm still looking. I'm always looking for upcoming talent. That's always been an interest of mine, scouting, and building teams or helping to build teams.
Right. I think you kind of touched on it a little bit before, but do you still like? Does that correlate over to scrim teams as well? Are you always scrimming internally with Overwatch teams, with Overwatch League teams, or do you try and scrim outside as people in the contenders circuit as well?
So all the owl teams from each other, and that's their preferred scrim. Like everyone wants to scrim like owl teams. If you can schedule your whole stage with owl teams, that'd be ideal, and no contenders teams, unless you have an academy team that you have you dedicate some time to help out your academy team. So yeah, it's always owl over any other type of scrim. But if not, obviously next is contenders. So first it's owl, then it's your own academy team if you have one. Then after that, it's other contender teams. Yeah, that's the hierarchy of scrims.
Sure. So do you notice a lot of other teams, perhaps, if they're avoiding scrims, do you think that maybe they're taking advantage of their sister teams or if their academy teams to maybe hide strats? Do you kind of pay attention to that?
So in owl, it's really professional. We schedule scrims out, like we schedule the whole stage. So my whole stage of scrims is already mapped out for this stage, except
Right.
for like a few select blocks, and any holes you fill in with contenders teams. That's kind of the general rule of thumb. Or like some, it's like if you play on Saturday and you need a warm up block from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Like no owl team is gonna wake up for that. So you're gonna have to get a contenders team to scrim you for that. So those are like the type of holes I'm talking about, or everyone else is booked up. But so we're booked out like way far in advance. So I couldn't tell you if a team was dodging us for scrims, because we pretty much scrim every. I think we scrim every owl team this stage. I don't really remember. We just kind of we kind of all post in like the same scrim. There's like an owl scrim channel where all the owl, like anyone that's scheduling for owl teams, post in like all their blocks. So we kind of all talk to each other. So yeah, I think I'm pretty sure we have blocks with every owl team, at least
Cool.
one block this stage. So
Okay.
yeah.
Cool. What do you think of picking and banning maps? I made a video about that recently. What do you think about that?
So I'm always a fan of picking maps and banning maps. I don't know why, or like have a set pool and like so. I think there's two. It's like this the way CS:GO does it, right? They have a set pool. Like here are the like 7 maps or whatever that are in this. I don't know. I don't know what they. I haven't watched CS:GO in a long time, or not a long time. I haven't paid attention to the scene in a while, so I don't really know
Sure.
how the. I just know that they have some sort of system where there's a rotation of 7 maps, and then teams like the pro teams like pick and ban based on those maps that are in the pool. I think that's fine. Or just have straight picks and bans for all the maps. I don't think there's an issue with that. I think teams should be able to pick like maps that they're strong on and like have an identity, right? Like Boston, like
With
Boston,
Volskaya, they're
right?
just insane on
Exactly,
that map.
right. And it's like if you just happen to have maps that you're good at in that stage, that you're just naturally good at as a team, you have such a large advantage over the other teams. Like, for example, anytime Junkertown's in, Houston's always so good at that map because the way they play, they have Jake. Like, it's not just Jake though. It's just the way they play that map. That like ticks all the boxes for them as a team. And it's like if you're the other team, always want to ban that map if you have the chance to, but you never get that chance. You're just forced to play that map. Um, and I think if you're forced to play that map, you should be able to force Houston to play a map that you're good on, too. And I think it's tough because some teams just aren't good at certain maps, and they never will be, or and it's just hard. But they're pros, so at the end of the day, like that's their job to adapt. But I definitely think it should be better. It can be better, and the pick bans I think is like contenders does pick and bans.
That's what I was about to say. Yeah, do you think that we'll see it maybe just specifically for the playoffs at Barclays Center? Do you think that we'll see it there?
I hope so. But I don't know. It's up to Blizzard.
All right. Well, to kind of wrap things up in a lighthearted tone here, proponent for the Florida Mayhem walkout game in the first couple of stages. Are we going? I know things are a lot more serious now. You're trying to grind, actually get all these wins, coordinate in that regard. Are we
Mhm.
gonna see walkouts make a return in stage 4, or have there been discussions with Overwatch League representatives saying like, no, we can't do this anymore?
I don't think it's. I think it's really just on the players. When that was like one of the first things. Like, you guys stopped doing walkouts. Like, what was like? Why was that? Is it more serious now, or like they're just like kind of just ran out of ideas? Honestly, we actually got asked by Shanghai to kind of do a collab, a walkout collab. Like,
Oh,
they were gonna walk out, and then we are gonna walk out. I think the last time we played them, but it just didn't happen. Because our players the walkout phase is over. The walkout phase of Florida Mayhem,
right.
it's over. I'm sh- I'm sure I want to say we can make it happen. The last game of this stage, or the last game of the season that we play. I'm sure the players would enjoy walking out for one last time. For this season at least. So maybe I can make that happen for the fans out there. But for now, like, that's kind of the reasoning. They just ran out of ideas. They did so many. That they just couldn't think of any anymore.
It's
That's
interesting.
the
Surely
real reason.
you guys need like a Discord chat on your community, just like crowdsource ideas
We
for the
should.
walkouts.
I'll let our social media guys know that we should have in our Discord. We should have a channel walkout ideas, and then have everyone submit their walkout ideas, and maybe, you know, kind of like how Fortnite did all the emote stuff, right? Or the dances. We can have a walkout, and then maybe we'll do one of those walkouts. And give you a shout out or something on Twitter. That could be something we could. That could be something fun we could do.
That's a good idea. All right, so to wrap things up officially, I just got a couple of quick fire questions. If you're all good with that, just a couple short answers. Nothing major here.
Sure.
Who is your favorite hero in the game?
Widowmaker.
What is your favorite map? If you have one.
I'm trying to think. Let's go King's Row. Very vanilla.
Same? No, that's my favorite as well. Do you have a favorite meta?
Favorite meta. Season 1, Widowmaker Mercy meta. Back when I was a DPS. That was fun. That was fun days. I didn't have to play a single other hero except for Widowmaker, and just carry games or just lose them. All the pressure's on your shoulders. And I really enjoyed that aspect. Yeah, Season 1 Widow Mercy meta. That's my favorite one, for sure.
Cool. What is your highest rank you've attained throughout all seasons?
4.5 something. Yeah, 4.5k, like mid 4.5k.
Cool. Okay, Mayhem bias aside, I think you mentioned one time that Mickey was your favorite player in the league. Is that still the case?
Unfortunately, no. Not anymore. He was Old Diva. Not currently, because Old Diva doesn't exist anymore. So back in Old Diva days when I was a Diva, I've always been a Diva. I've been a Diva player for some time now, but Old Diva is definitely Mickey. Definitely was my favorite player. Now, huh? I mean, it's Jonak for sure. That's my favorite player.
Sure, MVP, 100%.
I mean, MVP came, relatively unknown. Came out and he's just the best player in the world, and his performance never drops. It's always at such a high level. And I think the best part is, like, everyone asks him, like, oh, do you do aim training or anything? Like how Effect always does. He streams like 8 hours of like Osu or like aim hero, like, just
crazy.
nonstop grinding his aim. Jonak's like, I don't deathmatch. I just play ranked. I just click heads, and it's like just one of the just such a talented individual. And yeah, and good positioning, smart on the best team. It's definitely Jonak for me.
Okay, we saw in, I think, the last episode of Ascend, I think it was Joe 1v1ing side player. Have you 1v1 side player yet?
I've not. Obviously in the practice room, everyone's a big fan of Widowmaker headshot only. So you'll see them in the lobbies earlier on in the day. So when they start warming up, they always start their day with some Widowmaker headshot only on Chateau. Side players always in there on like a Smurf or something, and all the other players also join. Actually, Zupe wins a lot of those, actually. A lot of those FFAs, which I think is very interesting. But there's no chance he sees Zupe's Widow as long as as long as Sai player is playing. Unfortunately, but yeah, that's yeah. I
Oh, go on, go on.
no, I've never personally 1v1'd because I have nothing to prove, and I have no doubt he would crap all over me. But that was just fun from Joe. Joe's just he had the ranked bug for like a month, or at least the half a month he was here, he was always playing ranked on the PCs, like in the practice rooms if there's no PC, and he's a gold Widowmaker main, so he's just trying to learn some tips from Saya. Unfortunately, I don't think he learned much. I think Saya's just a little bit above his skill level.
Maybe.
But yeah, it was fun watching. It was fun watching him struggle to get out of spawn. That was fun.
All right, and last question just to wrap things up. Is your meme game still going to be strong now that you have a full-time role in the Overwatch League where everything is moderated, everything is considered?
Let's just Overwatch League can't hold me down on the meme game. If the desk can be that spicy, I can be just as spicy. I think there's some times where I did have to be like, wow, I had a really great idea, but I can't post it because that'd be too toxic, or it just doesn't. There's some things that there is a line, but I don't think Overwatch League holds me back. I think we'll still be good. I think you'll still see some pretty spicy memes on my Twitter from time to time.
All right. Good to know. All right, well, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to be here. Really do appreciate it. And best of luck to the Florida Mayhem moving forward in Stage 4.
All right, thanks, man. Happy to be here.